Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to walk you through the installation of Linux Mint. Linux Mint is one of the most popular and most widely used distributions currently available due to the fact that it is Ubuntu based and by extension Debian based. It is also configured in a way that makes it as user friendly as possible. In Linux Mint you won't have to deal with the command line and you will have a lot of pre-installed software. And that means that you will pretty much be able to use the operating system straight away after installing it. And all of that makes it perfect for inexperienced Linux users or even first-time Linux users. Now officially, Linux Mint comes in 3 different variations using 3 different desktop environments. If you don't know what a desktop environment or DE is, it is basically the look and feel of the operating system. The 3 desktop environments offered by Mint are Cinnamon, XFCE and Mate or Mate, I'm not sure how it is pronounced. But generally the Cinnamon desktop is the preferred one for Mint because it resembles the interface of Windows, and if you are used to using Windows, you won't find any difficulty using the Cinnamon desktop. Everything is where you would expect it to be, everything is where it should be if you're used to Windows, and as I said, everything will be very intuitive. Now when we start the PC with a bootable Linux Mint DVD already inserted into the optical drive, the install process should start automatically, or you will either get a message reading press any key to boot from DVD. When you do that, the setup should start automatically, and this is the first step we see. We have a couple of options here, but usually you should choose the first one, Start Linux Mint, which will start a live version of the operating system, which allows us to take a look around the desktop environment. In this case I'm using the Cinnamon desktop, and here we have a chance to see what the Cinnamon desktop environment actually looks like, and if it appeals to you. And if you don't like it, you can download a different ISO with a different desktop environment. Down below I'm going to put a link to the official website where you can download Mint and test it for yourself. And when we start up the live version of the system, from there on we can start the actual installation process. Okay, the live system is now booted up, and here you can take a quick look around to see what actually the Cinnamon desktop looks like. But don't worry, if you don't like it right away, you won't be stuck using this exact same desktop. Everything is very customizable, so you can change up everything to make it more suitable for your taste. And when you're done looking around, you can start the actual setup from this icon here, Install Linux Mint. And now we can begin with the installation. Now don't worry, the process is fairly simple, and it is and it is very similar to the installation of Windows. If this is your first time using or installing Linux, the partitioning part may be a little bit complicated, but as I said, everything is fairly simple. I recommend that before you begin with the actual installation, you connect your PC to the network so that the system can download all the necessary updates during the installation process. Now we have to choose the system language. I'm going to proceed with English. If you choose a different language other than English, there should be no problem, but keep in mind that some parts of the system might not be translated, and you may end up with a system in kind of two languages. I mean that one thing may be in your chosen language and one thing may be in English. I have tried this in my own language, and almost everything was translated, but not quite everything. Now we have to select our keyboard layout. Again, I'm going to proceed with English, since I can always add more layouts later on after the actual installation. You have a prompt where you can test your layout, your selected layout, if your language has multiple layouts, and we move on. Here we have an option to install additional multimedia codecs. I recommend that you check this option, because you may need those codecs to play some video formats, but even if you don't install them, you can install them later on. But it's easier if you just go ahead and check the option during the installation. It will save you some time afterwards. And we can move on. Now on that next step, we see two different options. The first option is erase disk and install Linux Mint. If you're installing Mint on a brand new PC or on an empty hard drive and you don't want to deal with manual partitioning, you might as well can go ahead and select that option. But if you want to set up a dual boot configuration, that means installing Linux alongside Windows, or you just prefer to choose your partition layout yourself, you can go ahead with the second option. And we can move on. Now, if you're used to installing Windows, this part may seem a little bit complicated. For now, I'm not going to go too deep into that topic. I will do another video later on where I will show you how you can partition your disk from within Linux, and I will give you a more detailed explanation of all the partitions that Linux uses. But basically, the main partition types in Linux are the root partition, which is the system partition, the actual partition where the operating system resides. This is the Linux equivalent of the C drive in Windows. Another type of partition is the /home partition, which is a partition used for storage of user files. You may or you may not create a home partition. Home partition is quite useful in some cases. For example, if you want to reinstall Linux, that way all of your files would be on a separate partition and you can reinstall Linux, attach the same home partition, and that way you get to keep all of the files without having to move them on an external storage device or something like that. Or you can even change your distribution by only formatting the root partition and leaving the home partition intact. But I usually do not create a separate home partitions because I tend to switch Linux distributions a lot, and I just prefer having only a root partition and using another NTFS partition so I can store my files. And since I almost always have multiple operating systems installed on my PC, I just prefer to use a separate NTFS partition to exchange files between Windows and Linux. But for the moment that doesn't matter. Let's see. We have also in Linux the naming of the actual physical disks is a little bit more complicated than in Windows. In this case I only have one physical disk, and it is SDA. Now if we had multiple disks, we would see SDA as the first disk, SDB as the second hard drive, or SDC if we have a third hard drive. And even if we had removable storage devices attached during the installation, this partition manager would recognize them as well. For example, if you have a flash drive plugged into your computer or an external hard drive, they would be all listed here as SDB, SDC, and so on. But for now, we are using only one physical hard drive, and we're going to select a new partition table. This message states that if we proceed with creating a new partition table on the device, all the current partitions will be removed and we will not be able to undo this operation. And now the SDA disk is listed as free space with a total size of 33 gigabytes. Here we can create a new partition. For the sake of this video, I'm going to just install Mint on only one root partition using the entire available space. We're going to leave the size at 33 gigabytes. For the type of partition, I'm just going to leave it to primary, beginning of the space. And generally, when installing Linux, you should just format the root partition as in ext4 file system. And this part is very important. On mount point, you should just select slash. Slash is the symbol for the main root partition. If you want to create additional partitions, for example, as I said, a home partition, you can mount the second partition as /home. But for now, I'm proceeding with just one root partition. Formatted in ext4. You may have also come across the term swap partition. Swap is, simply put, swap is a separate partition which in some cases and under some circumstances the system may use like RAM. And you will see different recommendations regarding the swap partition. Some in some websites you can see the recommended space would be the total of your RAM memory, I mean your system memory. So some places you can come across the recommendation of twice your RAM memory. You can also install Linux without a swap partition. If you have a swap partition, this doesn't mean that you have more system memory, because it is not used in the same way as your system memory, but only under certain circumstances, such as hibernation or suspending. But for now, as I said, I'm not going to go too deep into that topic. I won't be creating a home partition or a swap partition, just one main root partition. Below we have another option where to install the bootloader. The bootloader is basically the software which loads up the actual operating system during startup of the PC. I'm just gonna leave it as default, which is the master boot record on the actual hard disk. When you try different distributions, you may come across different options regarding the bootloader. Some distributions even offer to have the bootloader installed on a floppy disk, or you can have a separate boot partition where you can install the bootloader, but I usually just leave it at default, the master boot record. And now we can install the actual system. Here we can see the final list of actual changes that will be made on the physical disk, and we have the option to go back and change something if we've accidentally made some mistake or we thought of something else. But I will continue. Now we have to select our time zone. Since I'm already connected to the network, mine is automatically recognized, and I'm gonna leave it at as it is. Now we have to select we have to type in our name, a name for the PC, username for the user account, and a password. I will select the option to log in automatically, since I don't want to have to enter the password every single time. And we move on. By the way, everything, in my case, everything is happening a little bit slower, since I'm doing this on a virtual machine, and all of this uses up a lot of my computer's system resources. But don't worry, the entire installation will take you less than 1 hour, probably around half an hour. And now we just have to sit and wait for this entire process to finish automatically. Okay, now the installation process has finished, and we have an option to continue using the live system of Mint, the live version of Mint. to take another look at the Cinnamon desktop, or just restart the computer and boot up into the actual installed operating system from our hard drive. I'm going to go ahead and restart the PC. Now we have to remove the installation medium, meaning if we install it from disk, we have to take out the bootable DVD, or if we install from USB, we have to take out the aforementioned USB. Since I'm doing this on a virtual machine, I'm going to detach the ISO file and proceed. Just a second. As I said, all of this should be happening a lot quicker, but in my case it's taking a bit more time since I'm using a virtual machine and my system memory and CPU are just maxed out at the moment. And we're done with the installation. You can see the actual Cinnamon desktop. As I said, everything is very customizable, so if you don't like that layout, you can change everything very easily. For example, one of the first things I noticed in Cinnamon that I didn't like was the fact that everything is in black and green, but this is fixable in just under a minute. If you want me to do a video on customizing the Cinnamon desktop, let me know in the comments below. And after the setup is finished, you can begin configuring your system. But as I said, Mint is very user-friendly and almost everything is pre-installed on the system, everything is configured. You have different applications for everything, but if you need something else, you can install anything you want using the software manager, which is a graphical user interface for the package manager, which is apt package manager, since Mint is a Debian based distribution. So you can go to that icon which says software manager, and you can install anything you want without having to deal with the command line. If you found the video helpful, I would appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. If I haven't been clear enough in any of the steps, let me know down in the comments below, and I will do my best to explain anything that I may have missed. And I'll see you in the next video.